So is anybody waiting out there?
I think I'm going to move over.
2 people have entered the waiting room. Hi, Jan. Hi, Wayne.
Hi, Tim. How you doing this morning?
Pretty well. Oh, we let in. The masked marauder.
Hey,
Good morning.
Good morning.
is that better?
Yeah.
I can see more of you now, yes.
That could be worse.
I didn't know that you were money that bad, Bruce.
Not making any judgments there. Let's see, 3 more people have entered the waiting room. Sue. Hi, Sue.
Hello,
Yeah.
good to see you.
Good to
Good
see
morning.
Mark will
you.
be here in a second.
Okay,
How's things in Galva?
pretty good. We have that virus, so you know,
Yeah.
the town, not us.
Yeah, not you though. Yeah, we're staying away from everybody.
Yeah.
Check this shirt out, you guys. Can you read
Will you
it?
shut up?
Well, that's just rude, Mark.
Shut up, man.
Okay, we've got,
Sue gave me that.
realize, of course, that I can mute you at any time.
That's rude too.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of mute, shut my phone off.
There you go.
So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 participants so far. And I think last time, didn't I miss somebody once we got into the study? Somebody came in late. No, maybe that was
Yeah.
confirmation.
That was confirmation.
Yeah. I have to kind of keep my eye on the corner up there. See, there's somebody else now.
I know Diane's going to try to connect. Diane, I don't know if she's on yet.
Julie.
Julie, yeah.
Yeah, Diane Lodge texted us this morning and she's trying to get on. So
Okay.
her iPad died, but she's trying to get on her.
No, that was Lana.
That was
Wrong
Lana.
person.
So anyway, Diane was
That's
trying to
fine.
get on. So
Okay.
through her husband's computer.
Well, I think we should just give a couple more minutes just to make sure everybody has a chance to get on at the beginning. I'm going to look.
So are most of you shopping online or in stores for Christmas gifts?
Shopping.
Everything online.
Online. Online.
I do it through the year. I think I win the ugly box contest. I wrapped it with blue duct tape yesterday to put in the mail today. So if there are awards for ugly boxes, I think I won.
Good, good.
Lana has joined us, but she seems to be muted. Lana, if you can hear me, why don't you unmute? So you can yell at us if you need to.
Talking about Christmas shopping, I don't know if you guys know this, but Tim is the king of Amazon shopping. So he'll do everything through Amazon, I'm sure.
Yeah.
That's pretty much our house too. Amazon. You can get anything on Amazon.
Yeah,
You can,
Yeah, and you can find it quickly.
Yes.
Right.
and it comes quickly.
It does come quickly. We ordered something last week.
They
My
were
sister
saying, though,
ordered it
as
same
far as
I did. It took
ordering.
12 hours. It was there.
literally.
Wow.
Amazing.
Okay, Barbie's on, coming. Hi, Barbie.
Whoops, must be on mute too.
She must be.
I don't see her microphone
Oh,
down.
I see.
Lana, can you hear me? Can you hear us? You're on mute. If you want to find the little microphone thing with a slash through it and punch that,
I'll
click
text
that.
her if she can't.
You should be able to unmute yourself. I can do that too. And Barbie is here. And yeah, you can hear us, right, Barbie?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Just fine.
Good. Because I don't see a place to unmute.
You are already unmuted.
All right. That could be bad news.
Well, we'll just have to see.
Okay.
Ford is coming on.
Hi, Kathy.
Hi.
Can you hear us? Can you hear us, Dick? I don't see that you're muted, so I presume you can. Yeah, okay.
Are you talking about me?
Yes,
Yeah.
well, I was talking to you, actually.
Oh, you were talking to, well, I didn't know you were gonna let me in.
Well, we had to take a poll first.
Oh. All
It was
right,
debatable.
well, I'm in. I see you there.
Yeah, you made it. You made the,
I'll go on mute so you don't hear me.
no, you don't need to do that.
Oh,
Just
okay.
mute you if you get out of hand, that's all.
I thought that's what you said.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
that
put
is-
I'm gonna put him on, I'm gonna put him on mute.
I said, are you on mute?
Okay, go ahead, Tim. Go ahead, Tim.
I don't want to
Sorry.
oppress you or anything.
Sorry, I didn't get in on time. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Lana's going to try to get in by phone. She said the video didn't work.
The video didn't work.
It went blank or black.
It's nice to see people's faces.
It is.
It is.
I got a question first. Who's that other Jan right below Jan Clavon?
Jan Selman.
Oh, is that Jan Salmon?
Yeah,
Okay. I
We
didn't know who
don't have
that
your
was.
picture, but that
I
may
thought
be
maybe
on
it was a
purpose. Who
Presbyterian.
knows?
I thought maybe it was somebody Presbyterian, but no.
you don't get my picture?
No,
No, we don't see your picture or
How do I
Barbie's
do that?
either.
How do I do that?
You should
Connect to video.
see a video button that might have a slash through it and might not. If it does, then click on that and it should start your video.
Ah,
There you
Hey.
are.
You did
all
it.
right.
no, we don't get to see Barbie either. Just your name, Barbie.
Oh, I don't know what to do.
Can you find the little video camera icon? I think it's in the lower right, maybe, depending on what you're using. And
Is it?
if it
I
has a
see
slash
it.
through it, that means that it's off. Your video's off.
Nope, I don't see anything.
Well, look around, and if you can find it, there should be a little, looks like a little camera, and it would have a slash through it. And if you click on it, it'll turn on your camera.
Just mouse around your edges of that screen, Barb, and then it'll pop up if it's not there.
Yeah.
Oh,
Mine's on the left corner.
Yep, so is mine. Yep. Right next to mute.
There you are.
Got it.
There you are.
We're all learning.
I only get four pictures at a time. Is there any way I can get everybody at a time?
Gal, you, upper right.
Go across the bottom and hit share screen.
No, don't do that.
Huh?
I'm on my phone. I'm on my,
Oh.
And, on your phone?
yeah.
That's about all you'll get then.
Okay, I can switch around.
You
Yeah.
can scroll back and
I
forth
can-
to see all the pictures. Yeah,
So are we all about the size of a quarter then?
you can,
I'll go with silver dollar.
Okay, okay.
you get 3 pixels each. And you can do the view so that the person speaking fills your screen.
Right, that one I figured
See
out.
everybody, either
Okay.
way.
Okay,
When we're all speaking at once, it kind of tries to figure out where to go.
Let's still trying.
What's that?
Lana's still trying to connect.
Okay. And you're a little quiet, Bruce. Not that you're normally a loudmouth, but you're just,
What about Diane?
Can you hear me now?
I don't see anyone else trying to get in yet.
Diane was going to try to get on through her husband's computer, so
Okay.
they had
Your
issues
voice,
last week as well. I don't know.
your voice is still faint, Bruce.
Well, I'm not sure why. I got my volume all the way up. I don't.
You have something over your microphone?
What's that?
Do you have something sitting over your microphone? I know our iPhones sometimes, depending on how we hold it.
It might be on the exterior mic.
Yeah, let me check something here.
Yeah.
No, it's on internal.
we go.
Does that work better?
Yeah.
Yes.
That is better.
The expert sitting next to you knows what to do, Bruce.
That's right. Cynthia is gaining all
We
sorts
switched
of
around with
knowledge.
different microphones. We record with external mics, internal mics, and you got to make sure it's on the right mic. And
Yeah.
It's been real.
Cynthia, you're doing an awesome job.
Yes.
Yes, you are.
Thank you.
It's actually been fun. I've really enjoyed. You can teach an old dog new tricks.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
it's been a lot of hours.
A lot of hours.
I'm sure.
Yeah. It takes me hours and hours to do Sunday worship now
Yeah.
because I have to piece together
Right.
audio from the pianist and my stuff and
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing.
together and
And at the
Sometimes it doesn't work.
learn how to put in who participated and it scrolls up. It's so cool.
oh, cool. Yeah. By the way,
So you put who in service.
pardon?
At the end of a
Yeah,
movie.
like credits at the end of a movie.
You can do.
Like credits at the end of
Oh.
a movie.
That's nice.
Yeah, I woke up thinking about what I needed to do for the next two services and Christmas Eve. You know, how to set it.
Because we got a lot of recordings coming up beginning today and
Yeah.
the next
And we
week.
need to talk about Christmas Eve, how we're going to do that if we want to do it together as both churches.
Yeah, that'd be neat. We've got things planned, but we can combine. Let's
But we normally do a combined service, so
Not for Christmas Eve.
we can talk about that off the record. By the way, just a disclaimer so everybody knows, I do record this Bible study session because there are a couple of people who can't make this time. So I record it, I edit it down a little bit, like I'll take all this initial chatter out. And then I put it on Facebook. So they can tune in later today or tonight or, anytime. At least see what people had to say. Is that okay with everyone?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think everybody should make faces.
I can edit that out, Cynthia.
No, actually, I put my mask back on.
And we should all mask up at the end of the
There you go.
day. Well, why don't we wait? Two people are in the waiting room. See, that's here's an iPhone waiting
Oh,
and Lana waiting.
Yeah.
oh, that's why she couldn't get it.
There's Lana.
There's Lana.
There's Lana.
Hi,
Hi,
Lana.
Lana.
Can you hear us?
We see you, Lon.
There.
There, we can hear you. Can you hear us? Good. And
I'm
who's
on my phone now.
Oh, who's on the iPhone? There's another iPhone there, but it doesn't say who it is.
Oh, it might.
It might be her, both,
Diane.
well, it might be both, might be Lana's as well.
Oh,
I've been
well,
on Zoom meetings where someone's been on with their video, but also their phone at the same time.
Well, my computer is completely blank, dead. I mean, you can see that.
yeah.
And that's my iPad too. It went completely blank. So I thought I was going to be able to use my computers. So I downloaded Zoom.
Yeah.
I was there for a minute. So now I have to download it on my phone. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry.
Whatever works.
So much confusion.
You get used to it. You learn the tricks. So, so shall we begin? And I'll try to keep an eye on the top there. If anybody else tries to get in, I'll, depending on who they are, I'll let them in. Let's pray. In the midst of the accelerating frenzy of the holiday shopping season, at least online, oh God, we yearn for a more compelling sense of your presence. Draw us into a quiet space where we may encounter your Son, Emmanuel, God with us. Amen.
Amen.
So today's topic is Matthew. And if you manage to get a hold of the book, you know that I was gonna put a picture of the house on it for those who don't have the book, but the kind of the come on for this study is, you know, Christmas in 4 gospel houses. So last week was Mark with a very sparse, minimally decorated, very simple kind of coverage, because Mark just starts off the beginning of the gospel of Jesus Christ, the Son of God, and then launches right into John the Baptist. And if you'd like my interpretation of that, you can watch my Sunday sermon last Sunday, which I didn't exactly rip off from this study, but was inspired somewhat by this study. So today's Matthew, and the architect who did the drawings for this portrays Matthew's house as a Victorian mansion with lots of rooms and lots of pictures of ancestors going back for generations, some pictures of people who aren't a part of the family, but who were important to the family. And he says that what he was going for was something, I'm not sure I'm using his words, a little creepy, a little scary, kind of a sense of menace, if you will, along with all the, you know, many rooms and, you know, what happened in these rooms and kind of the, if the walls could speak kind of an idea. So, and I presume that you maybe looked at the first couple of chapters of Matthew as you prepared for this. So what is your impression? How does Matthew start off? I should.
Genealogy.
Can you look up the Matthew?
Names, and names.
I gotta have my iPad here because I have the book on that. I gotta have my phone so I can have, you know, the Bible on that, and then I need my computer so I can have. What's that?
Barb, in response to your, you know, you said the word genealogy, and that's what begins. And actually, the word at the beginning of the Gospel of Matthew is the word Genesis.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and then he lists the genealogy, but the actual word is Genesis.
Oh, that's a parallel.
Anyway, go on.
Yeah, Matthew starts off with a genealogy, and how does it work? What is genealogy?
Goes back into history of all of the people we read about, you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, I wondered initially, why are we reversing the study. Why does Mark come before Matthew? But in reading these two studies, it makes sense to me now how, you know, the birth is glorified, and then John the Baptist comes in and you know, talks about make straight in the way of desert, you know. So the beauty of the birth comes first, but you know, not in this, but this to me brings it home of why it's presented in our Bible the way it is.
Well, yeah, that, and actually, Mark, because it's the earliest of the Gospels, so historically it was written before the others.
Yeah,
I'm still having trouble hearing you, Bruce.
Yeah, we're still having trouble hearing you, although we're trying very hard. Yeah, don't be deceived by the order of books in the Bible. That the order in which they're presented is not necessary. It's not a book that was written like cover to cover. The order in which things appear are not necessarily chronological. So the kind of the scholarly consensus is that Mark was written first, and it's the shortest, and then Matthew and Luke each had copies of Mark, and they used Mark for their outline. So most of what is in Mark is also in Matthew and Luke, but each also adds his own stuff, especially when Mark doesn't offer anything, and Mark does not offer us a Christmas story. So that's why what the Christmas story that Matthew gives us is completely different from the one that Luke gives us.
Don't you think whoever tells a story, some listeners who may be familiar with it say, oh yeah, that's right, but I remember this and I remember that and I can add this to it.
Yeah.
I don't want to say the first liar doesn't have a chance, but kind of something like that. I mean, they are able to add to it because the originator stirs up the memories.
Yeah, there must have been a lot of circulating. Go ahead, Wayne.
No, it wasn't Wayne.
No,
It
it
was
wasn't
Bruce.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. Yeah, there were lots of stories circulating apparently. And the ones that the different gospel writers chose to include would depend on who they were, what part of the Christian community they were part of, who they were writing for, and what they were trying to convey in their writing to their audience.
And also their own.
Some listeners who may be familiar with this, and I remember that.
Pardon me?
I was thinking too, their own perspective and their own background of what's important to them, you know, of what's of interest to them that they would share. I think when a police officer does an investigation into some crime or an accident or whatever, and they ask multiple people because not everybody notices the same thing, not everybody cares about the same thing. So we all bring our own personal perspective into whatever we tell or whatever we inform someone else of.
Two things come to mind when you say that. One is Pastor Bruce has said this many times at Bible studies. If we were to all tell the same story to each other and play telephone, it might be different at the end because we hear what we want to hear. And secondly, I think about my own family or my sister and I, if we were to recollect stories from 30, 40 years ago, I bet we would tell the same story with a different slant, whatever we wanted to be stressed. It would be the same story, but two different things would be stressed.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, I sometimes sat down with my cousin David, with whom I got in a lot of trouble growing up. And we have told our stories, but it generally comes out that if he tells a story, it was my fault, and if I tell the story, it's his fault. And some of the details of the story would be different too.
Well, if I tell a story, I would have to take all the blame. It always was.
You admit it.
I admit it.
Well, yeah, so we have different, so we're going to see something different in Luke than what we see in Matthew. The genealogy, Matthew just bang right into the genealogy. I mean, that's the very first thing he says. This is the genealogy of Jesus Christ. And his genealogy, if you've done genealogy, you know that it can get kind of messy. You know, who do you find? How do you fit them into the chronology? Who were their relatives? All that stuff. And then you look at Matthew's genealogy, and it's just almost too good to be true. Yes. 14 generations from, he traces Jesus all the way back to Abraham, but not any farther. So then he has 14 generations from Abraham to, is it David? And then 14 generations from David to the exile, and then 14 generations from the exile to Jesus. You know, that's a kind of a scheme rather than probably, you know, the reality of a real living genealogy. He also includes some interesting people, especially in light of the kind of the patriarchy of the ancient world. He includes 3 women, all of whom were probably, or none of whom probably were Israelites. I mean, yeah, one of them might have been, the other 2 we know weren't. One is Rahab, the prostitute who was living in Jericho when the Israelites arrived, and you know, you have the story of the marching around Jericho and all that stuff, the walls come tumbling down. But she was the one who hid the Israelite spies who came to check out the situation before the actual attack. And so she and her family were spared, and she became apparently a part of the nation of Israel and was kind of brought in. Ruth is another. She was from Moab. You probably remember that story because it's such a nice story and it's only 4 chapters long. But she was from Moab, which was a traditional enemy of Israel. They were on the southeastern border. Ruth came back to Bethlehem with her mother-in-law, Naomi, and then married Boaz, and 4 generations later, David is born. So Ruth the Moabite was an ancestor of Israel's greatest king. And then the other is Bathsheba, and I don't think she's mentioned by name, but the wife of Uriah is the way she's mentioned. Uriah was a Hittite, which was, there were small kingdoms north of Israel who were kind of the remnants of the ancient Hittite Empire. So there were Hittites, or at least people called Hittites around. They were not Israelites, but David had a lot of foreigners in his military and his administration. So it's not clear whether Bathsheba was an Israelite who married a Hittite, Uriah, or whether they were both Hittites by origin. But to have 3, there's another one, Tamar, that makes 4. She was the prostitute by whom Judah had 2 of his children. So some really kind of, you know, the sort of people you may not want to have included in your genealogy. But there they are in Matthew, kind of outsiders. So that's one interesting feature of the genealogy. What do you think is the purpose of that? And while you discuss that, I'm going to reset my tablet here.
Well, it kind of ties everything together. Everything that the Jews already knew in the Old Testament, it's tying all those stories together into Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to Genesis, when God calls Abram to go to another country, God blesses Abram with, among other things, you will be blessings to all nations on earth. And that's kind of inclusive, I think.
Yeah.
Including every, even women.
And that may be why Matthew reaches out to these non-Israelites, at least a few in the genealogy. And then who are the main characters in Matthew's birth story?
He's talking about the astronomers or the scientists, the kings, wise men. I don't know if you'd consider those the main characters, but they certainly are notable.
Yeah. They were from Persia. It was Persia at that time, but they kind of represent the astronomical community, from the Babylonians had been known for, and then their successors in the Persian empires. So they're definitely foreigners who travel a long way, apparently, to visit Jesus or the Holy Family. Let's see, who else?
4 times, the angel of the Lord appears to Joseph in a dream to give him advice.
I always looked at it as orders rather than.
Okay.
But yeah.
I'm trying to be nice.
Okay, right. Think about the name Joseph and dreams.
There was an
Yes.
Joseph.
Yeah. Yeah, the Joseph who was one of the sons of Jacob, who was the one whom his loving brothers sold into slavery in Egypt, and then partly because of his administrative abilities and partly because of his ability to interpret dreams. He himself was a dreamer. Remember, he had the dreams about his brothers and his parents bowing down to him, the sheaves, and the stars and stuff. But his ability to interpret dreams brought him to the attention of Pharaoh. And then when he told Pharaoh that Pharaoh's dreams meant that there was going to be a 7-year drought, he was appointed, Secretary of Agriculture or something like that, to gather up the harvest from the good years and store it up for use during the famine years. So Joseph and dreams go together.
That'll be a distinction between Luke and Matthew, because Luke is more focused on Mary and Matthew's more focused on Joseph.
Yeah.
But it raises a very interesting issue. The writer of Matthew's trying to link, show that Jesus is connected to what came before, that he's rooted in the Jewish faith, and he's Jewish and rooted in that deeply. But if, what is Joseph? It's not a bloodline, because Joseph, is he Jesus' adopted father? If Mary's the virgin, then is there really a historical connection there? Anyway, it's an issue that Matthew plays with in that genealogy.
Yeah, Luke also has a genealogy, and it's kind of an old biblical issue that's people have fussed over for a long time. That is, if you lay them out side by side, they don't match up. And so one of the solutions to that is to say that one of those is the genealogy of Mary, and the other is the genealogy of Joseph. And in a patriarchal society, Matthew knows good and well that you trace the heritage even of, this child who's not technically Joseph's son. Still, you trace his heritage through the father and not the mother. Luke, on the other hand, gives.
Yeah, I was going to say verse 16, Matthew really, that's where he makes that little shift. He says, Matan was the father of Jacob, and Jacob was the father of Joseph, the husband of Mary, of whom was born Jesus, called the Christ. So that's how he kind of makes the shift there,
Yeah, Matthew, in a lot of ways, is very careful about how he says things, and confronts issues. It's not an issue for us in studying the birth stories, but in the story of the baptism of Jesus, John doesn't want to baptize Jesus. He says, I'm not worried to baptize you. You should be baptizing me. And then Jesus' response is, let it be so now, as though to say, it's a technicality. We're going to go ahead and do it this way. Matthew recognized that Jesus was more special than John, I guess you would say, and that he didn't need to be baptized for repentance, which was John's message and the point of the baptism. The other Gospels, all of whom have John the Baptist stories, just ignore that issue, but Matthew addresses it.
Why do you think he does address it? What would, as opposed to the other ones?
Well, I think it worried him. His understanding of who Jesus was, he brings that to the story and wonders why this would be. And the others apparently just don't that as an issue, and so they don't really address it. That would be my understanding of it.
And it kind of gets back to what Tim was talking about and was brought up, that each writer of a book or a gospel in the Bible, they are writing to they have a specific audience. It's in a specific time period, and they're addressing particular or specific issues. So they have a perspective, they interpret, but they're addressing a certain situation. So that can, and they have a certain perspective they're trying to present. So that's why they're going to present the material. In real estate, it's location, location, location. And in reading the Bible, it's context, context, and context.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I have something to throw in here. I have an acquaintance who is a very, very strong Catholic. And I raised the question with her one time about the Catholics' adoration of Mary. And since Jesus and his family were Jewish, I was trying to put that all together, a Catholic worshiping a Jew.
Yeah, how did she respond to that?
She didn't.
Oh. That's a good response sometimes.
It's interesting how the Jewish lineage, in the Holocaust, for instance, if a child was born to a Jewish mother, the father didn't need to be Jewish, but if the mother was Jewish, then he was a Jew, he or she.
Yeah.
And so that was just kind of a conundrum as far as I was concerned with the Catholic, you know.
That is still the practice in Jewish circles.
Mhm.
That one's being a Jew is through the mother's line.
Right.
It has something to do with practices during the Middle Ages, with persecutions during the Middle Ages, but I can't remember what. Now I have to go look that up. The reasons for doing that. Oh, I know, it was because Jewish women got raped a lot by Cossacks and stuff. And if they had a child, you know, and the father was a Gentile, what was the child? So they made the rule that the child was going to be considered Jewish, even though the father was probably a Gentile.
But so much lineage is traced through the mother. If you think like Nicholas and Alexandra, for instance, when they were trying to determine the lineage of one of the children, I think it was Anastasia. You know, they went back to the Greek mother, you know, Philip's mother. It was all the mitochondrial DNA. So all of this is traced through the mother.
Yeah. Yeah, mitochondrial DNA is always passed to the mother. Because men just have sperm and it doesn't, there's not much there.
Sorry for getting us off the track here.
No, that's quite all right. So Matthew is very deliberate about connecting Jesus up with David, who was the great king, and you know that was kind of as Jewish understanding of the Messiah developed later on in biblical history. It was David who was the anointed one that everybody kind of looked back to as the ideal. And then he traces him back to Abraham, who was the father of the Jewish people, and no further. That's where he stops. And so he's really placing Jesus in a very, very Jewish context. And a lot of interpreters of Matthew think that Matthew was writing primarily to a congregation or congregations that were largely Jewish converts. They were Jews by heritage and not Gentiles. So they would have understood all that and the necessity for that. And also, you know, Matthew is the one who has Jesus go up on a mountain and then, you know, give 3 chapters worth of teaching. And one of the things he says in that teaching is that not one, you know, stroke of the law will be abolished before everything is fulfilled. Some scholars even see in Matthew 5 kind of blocks of teaching, which they identify with the 5 books of the Torah, which was the most sacred part of the Hebrew scriptures. So there are a lot of connections there with Matthew makes a lot of connections with Jesus, Judaism particularly. But then you got these foreigners, you know, so, which is kind of an anomaly. Who was it, Barbie, I think, that talked about Abraham being one, you know, part of the call of Abraham was that Abraham's family would be a blessing to everyone. So maybe that's Matthew's way of saying, you know, we're beginning to reach out and bring in others.
Let me just piggyback on that. There's obviously with Matthew, there's continuity with the Jewish tradition, the scriptures and all that, the history, but there's also discontinuity. So you'll notice sometimes in Matthew, it'll say, well, you've heard it said, an eye for an eye, blah, blah, blah. Well, and then he says, but I say this and this and this. So there is continuity, but there's also discontinuity in the gospel. And I think part of that might be with, like you were talking about, the foreigners, the women in this, in the in the genealogy, and that, yeah, we have continuity, but this continuity that we want to broaden our reach, which might say something about the church. And by the way, Matthew is the only gospel where the word church appears.
That's right, right. He's got that little bit about, you know, if somebody in the church offends you and how many times you forgive. And
Well, when was the word church first really used in history? I don't mean in the Bible, but when was it part of common language?
well, Bruce, correct me if I'm wrong, but ecclesia, which is generally translated church, just means assembly. You could use it about, I presume you could use that as a word for a Rotary Club meeting too, but it came to be associated with the Christian assemblies in the early church. It's used a lot in Acts, which was also written by Luke. So Luke doesn't use it in the gospel, but does use it in, he gets to Acts. So that's probably the church's way of talking about their meetings or their meetings for worship. I don't know the history of that. That would be a good thing to look up in the theological word book of the New Testament.
Yeah, I don't know when that word first came into use, but yeah, that.
I'm looking at the questions here at the end of the book on the chapter in Matthew. We talked about that. And talked about the three wise guys very much. So I think Cynthia Campbell is arguing for Matthew as being a kind of significant outreach to the non-Jewish world. And, you know, you have to imagine your way into the early church where the first converts were all Jews, all of Jesus' disciples. Jesus was a Jew, all of Jesus' disciples were Jews. And the earliest converts were all Jews. And it wasn't till the 10th chapter of Acts, as Luke tells the story of the early church, that you get the first Gentile convert. And that was a big deal. I mean, it made a lot of people upset that, you know, how do you work this? You know, we Jews have dietary laws and all this kind of thing. How do we have fellowship with Gentiles if there are Gentiles who are in our church? You know, do we have a kosher table and a Gentile table for food when we have a potluck? You know, there were a lot of issues involved, and chapters 10 through 15 of Acts really are about that, trying to settle that early controversy. But as time went on, the church became demographically more and more and more Gentile. I mean, the mission to the Jews, if you will, just kind of fizzled, didn't get very far, but the mission to Gentiles was, you know, reasonably successful, especially with Paul and his associates kind of working out in the Greek world. So the church, the demographics of the church were slowly tilting from predominantly Jewish to predominantly Gentile. And at some point, these gospels were written in, you know, at different times. Even the separation of a few years probably made a difference to address situations which were changing pretty rapidly. One thing that the Victorian house suggested to me, and what's the guy's name? Kevin Burns, the architect who drew those, you know, in his little description of it, he says that it's kind of scary. And that suggested to me that to kind of rethink the story as Matthew tells it. Yeah, there it is. I mean, I'm
Very scary.
to the little box that has Bruce on it on the screen, but there's the kind of ramshackle Victorian house there. Matthew's story is scary when you think about it.
He even said it was dangerous.
Yeah. I mean, do you get that feeling from it? Just reading it all on its own, you know, it's not as, I mean, it's threatening. After the genealogy and after the announcements, the dreams in which, you know, the message is conveyed and the baby Jesus is born, the wise men go to Herod and say, where's this king? And Herod says, king.
Right here.
And he sends them on to find this person whom he must have thought was an upstart who was going to dethrone him. And he, after the wise men leave and they go home by a different route, you know, he sends soldiers up there to kill every baby in the Bethlehem and vicinity who's under 2 years of age. It's a really nasty kind of story. I mean, really brutal kind of story. And
The parallel there with, you know, between Jesus and Moses, that Jesus is going to be the authoritative Moses. He goes through all the experiences that the Israelite had gone through from Egypt and, you know, all the things that happened. So anyway.
Yeah, they have to flee to Egypt. Joseph going down into Egypt. I mean, who could hear that and not connect it with Joseph under threat from his brothers going down to Egypt? And then just a verse or two later, Joseph again has a dream in which he's told that, I don't know how many years later it was, that Herod had died. And so the Holy Family can come back to the land of Israel, but Archelaus, the son of Herod, is now the king in Judah, which is where Bethlehem is. And so they're afraid to go there. That's why they wind up in Nazareth, way up in the north, and was not a part of Archelaus's little kingdom. So, you know, and then in the middle of that, he quotes the passage about Rachel weeping for her children. So it's pretty, when you separate out, just look at Matthew all by himself, it is a kind of a sad and brutal story. Anyone else want to comment on that? Am I off base here?
No, I was just asking Bruce, isn't Rachel the one that told her boys all to go and face their problems and they're all killed, and then finally the last one she saves? Is that correct?
Rachel would.
Not Rachel. See, it was Isaac and Rebekah.
Sorry.
Jacob and Rachel, Leah, Bilhah, and Zilpah. Rachel only had 2 children, and those were Joseph and Benjamin.
Okay, then it's a different one.
It may be a different Rachel. I'll have to check that out. Yeah. Rachel weeping for her children. I'm gonna have to look that up. I don't know, look it up. Find yourself a Bible that has, you know, cross references or a study Bible or something and see what they say about who this Rachel is. And you get the picture. Matthew, this is another characteristic of Matthew. He's constantly connecting Jesus back to the ancient scriptures, especially Isaiah. Christians love Isaiah, but, you know, to a lot of different places, whether explicitly as it is written by the prophet so-and-so, or implicitly by the way he tells the stories. So as far as I'm concerned, now that I've read through this stuff, Matthew's story of the birth of Jesus is a real bummer. Pretty sad.
Dangerous.
More of a survival story than a kind of a glory to God in the highest kind of story.
I was looking up a note in Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 15. It indicates that the name of Rachel is used here and in Matthew to personify the kingdom, that when Herod sought to destroy the 2-year-old boys, 2 years and under, just like in Egypt when Pharaoh wanted to destroy the 2-year-old babies, male babies and under.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a representative of any mother, I think, who lost a child at the hands of a tyrant.
Yeah, it's pretty common in biblical, in the Hebrew scriptures to use alternate names. Israel is actually the second name of Jacob, just like Abraham is the second name of Abram. And then Rachel, so Israel could be referred to as Israel or as Jacob. And in this case, since it's talking about children being mourned by their mother, maybe Rachel is an appropriate choice for the children of Israel, the people of Israel.
Rachel was also Jacob's first choice of wife. She was the one that he truly loved, but then his father-in-law snuck in the older sister instead of Rachel. So that Jacob had married. Yeah.
If he went into the tent after the marriage party and couldn't tell that it was not Rachel.
It was dark, the lights were out.
He'd had a little too much to drink, I think.
A little outside influence.
Yeah. But yeah, she was the beloved, the wife that he loved from the very first, that he worked 7 years for and then got the other one. And he had to work another 7 years.
There's that number 7 again. Always.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, it seems to be.
Or in this case, 14. We saw 14 a few times.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple theories about that 14. Like in Cynthia Campbell says it's like divine perfection times 2. You know, because the 7 is kind of the, I don't know, symbol for perfection or the perfect, whatever. For 14, then some people say, well, that means it's perfection doubled or whatever. But there's also another theory about it, and that is that now in Hebrew there's no vowels, and so I guess the Hebrew word for David, DVD, in the Hebrew equivalent, it's the D is given a value of 4. The V 6, and then the second, of course, the other D 4, so that totals up to 14. So there's different theories about what that 14 might suggest. But
okay. The number that corresponds to the name.
To the David, DVD with no vowels, so 464. So
yeah, you know, there's that passage in Revelation where it talks about the beast and the number of his name is 666.
Yeah.
And then but there are other manuscripts that say 616. And so scholars have tried to figure out who that's referring to. I think the consensus is that it's Ronald Wilson Reagan, each name 6 letters. I just heard that once. I don't believe it.
Well, here's a question for the scholars again. is the mythological beast, the unicorn, mentioned in scriptures?
I don't think so. Do you remember we're coming across unicorns, Bruce?
I don't remember that, but
That was a question on Jeopardy. What beast appears in the scripture? And the answer given was a unicorn. And I don't remember that. But anyway, I thought I would ask the experts.
I don't remember unicorns. I remember.
Alongside the behemoth.
did they give a reference for it?
No.
No.
Well, one of the beasts mentioned was the behemoth, and what was the other? I was
Right.
as confounded as anybody else with unicorn.
Now they mentioned behemoth, but no, that wasn't accepted.
Yeah, there's Leviathan and.
It wasn't Leviathan. It was two land creatures.
That would let out Yam and Nahar and Raha
And Leviathan.
and Leviathan. Yeah.
Well, and another bit of trivia, as long as I'm espousing all this stuff.
Yes.
I heard that on December 21st, there's going to be another alignment of the stars.
Yeah,
Jupiter and Saturn are going to be in conjunction.
one astronomer says it's one of the most romantic things is they're coming together almost to kiss, even though they'll be millions of miles apart. They're still
In the sky, they'll be close together.
in the sky. From our vantage point, they'll look like they're right there together.
And that's the first time that this has happened since 1623.
Wow.
It's amazing.
But in 1623, they could not see it. The last time they could see it before that was 12 something, I think.
Why couldn't they see it in 1623?
23.
Yeah, unicorn is in Numbers.
23, chapter 23, verse 22.
Oh, okay.
It says, I don't know, I'm not looking at a particular version, but it says, God brought them out of Egypt. He hath, as it were, the strength of a unicorn.
Oh,
Which translation is that?
King James.
King James.
Of course.
Okay. I'll bet it's something else.
One is so poetic.
Translation.
Modern translation, that would be a wild ox.
Yeah, it's translated in others as wild ox. So
What was that reference, Cynthia?
no, Numbers 23, 22.
Remember that 23, 22 unicorn.
It could say unicorn, wild ox, or buffalo.
Numbers 23, 22.
Thank you.
So it depends on the translation of the word.
Are there any other comments on Matthew, what Matthew is doing? Really connecting us up with, or connecting Jesus up with the story of Israel in a lot of different ways. And, you know, none of the Christmas stories taken by themselves is what we think of as complete. You know, don't look at your manger scene. You know, they're the wise men right alongside the shepherds with the angel up on the roof and oxen and stuff, and maybe Santa Claus, you know, if you're really up to date with this. And so.
Well, as far as genealogy, some people could say that Jesus was related to Joseph through God, because God is the father in an image, some people's images, and we're supposed to all be connected. So.
Yeah, well, wait till Luke, you know, he has a genealogy too, and it really does connect everybody in the way he's.
Yeah, Luke goes back beyond Abraham.
Right.
And yeah, so that's
So that's
all those idolatrous Gentiles.
And you got in Luke Acts, you got, of course, the 3 acts. You got 3 epochs or 3 eras, or however you want to describe it. So it's kind of interesting to look at Luke Acts.
So that's next.
Oh, hold up that picture again so we can see the.
Luke
Luke, yeah, Luke's house, the house that,
Real
Can you
close.
see it?
You have to go real close.
I can't tell if I'm on it or
Here.
not.
Mhm.
I can see it. Let me get it. Let me hold it. Can you see that?
Yep.
Yep.
yep,
Reminds me of something that might be found in Montana.
Mhm.
kind of a ranch style,
Mhm.
so the big porch and
Rustic.
rustic, yeah.
Like that one.
That'll be interesting. So that's for next week. Any other comments, questions, trivia?
How many of you have her book?
I have it online and the pictures do come through.
Good.
Even on my Kindle, I can read.
And
Yeah.
Jan, I think you said yours was free with a Prime membership to Amazon through Kindle.
Correct. And it's complete. The etchings, which makes me think of Sharon, by the way, Michelson. I see those pen and ink. But all the way, the whole book. And I just downloaded it. No, I just can't write in it, which is
Yeah.
You can make notes in Kindle books.
I have my little thing. I write it.
You can underline, you can highlight, you can make little notes. They'll pop up whenever you.
You are so technically savvy. I'm not.
I've learned a lot in the last several months.
I bet.
We'll have to go to the school of Cynthia.
Cynthia Campbell asked one of her questions, and I always think this is an intriguing question. It's a question in this Matthew discussion. And she said, based on Matthew, the birth narrative and the gospel, the entire gospel itself, do you think it's necessary for persons to be Christian to be a part of Matthew's family picture gallery?
Nope.
She describes the picture photo gallery in the house. Like if you're going up the stairwell, there's going to be pictures going all the way back to Abraham and getting older and older, and the clothes change, the looks change, the quality of the picture change. But anyway, she asked as one of the questions, what do you think this statement has to say to us about the inclusion of brothers and sisters of other faiths and God's promises? And do you think it's necessary for persons to be Christian to be a part of Matthew's family picture gallery? Anybody have an opinion or thought? Or
The statement ends, it's also for the whole world that God loves so much. And coincidentally, Matthew ends his gospel with Jesus saying, "Go, therefore, and make disciples of all nations."
Right.
So we're all in this together, so to speak.
Okay.
I thought the beginning of the book really set the page. I mean, you could visually feel yourself going up the steps, looking at all the pictures, looking at the clothing. And I think of so many families, I'm not talking about any individual family, but any lifestyle is accepted into God's family, or any race, any religion. We're all one family. And so many churches are going through that difficult decision now. Who's part of God's family? How can we say no to one whose picture's right there on the wall going up the steps? So that's kind of how I interpret it, that trip up the steps.
Well said, Jan.
Thanks.
Unfortunately, too often we let those differences divide us rather than learning from each other and bringing us together.
Yeah.
Tim, you mentioned earlier about the conversion, and I had a very, very close friend who was Jewish. And after Jack and I visited the Holy Lands, I came back and mentioned about visiting a Messianic Jewish service. And my friend said, you know, they are not Jews. Well, they are and they aren't. You know, I don't know how you would define them, really. they're Christians and they are Jews.
Yeah, I think the Jewish, from the point of view of the Jewish community, they have stepped outside of Judaism.
Mhm.
They do try to maintain Jewish traditions and practices, but most Jews would not, they would consider them to have converted and, you know, become Christian.
Mhm.
It's not as clear in the very earliest period of the church. You know, just walking down the street in Jerusalem, you couldn't have probably identified a Jew who believed that Jesus was the Messiah from, you know, a Jew who didn't. I've often thought that you know, the New Testament gives us a kind of a unfortunately biased view of Pharisees. And we use the term Pharisee in a derogatory way, you know, to say somebody's being Pharisaic when they're kind of uptight and strict and everything. But out there in the wider world, you know, say from a Roman point of view, you would not have been able to tell a Pharisee from a Christian, just, you know, based on appearance and practices. And if you ask them questions, most of their beliefs. So it really depends on what perspective you're bringing to it. You know?
We set Jesus apart. If Jesus were walking down the street today and if he weren't the Christ, how would he define himself? Would he be a Christian or a Jew? And that's an unanswerable question, I guess.
It is, yeah. He lived and died a Jew. Maybe he still is. We'd not be able to identify him, though. He'd have the beard, you know, and the robe, sandals. And
Yeah.
anything else? Bruce, you want to pray us out of here?
Sure, and I will, let me just close with her prayer, okay?
Okay.
Let's pray. We give thanks, O God, for the gift of Jesus Christ, your enduring presence with us. Guide us as we continue to discern what it means that the promise is for us, for the great big us, the whole human community. Open our hearts to a clear understanding of your vision for the cosmos. For it is in the name of Emmanuel we pray. Amen.
Thank you, everybody. It's good to see all of you and enjoyed the discussion. And next week it's Luke. And then we'll take the following week off. And then on the, was it the sixth day of Christmas? We'll,
30th?
What date?
30th.
The 30th, I think.
25th is a Friday, right?
Just today's, yeah.
30th.
Get the
Yes.
23rd.
Whatever. Yeah, we'll finish up after the week of Christmas Day. Week of Christmas Day.
But next week.
But still, next week. Yeah, and we'll send out the reminder and the sign up for the Zoom well before next week. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. And Tim, I'll talk to you whenever you have a time to do that.
Okay, about Christmas Eve? Yeah.
Yeah, we used to always do, you know, Lent, and we would do Ash Wednesday, Good Friday, but
We did Christmas Eve together. Didn't we alternate Christmas Eve at the two churches?
oh, that was the Christmas program.
Oh, the Christmas program. Oh, well, okay, just do your own Christmas Eve.
That way.
We could probably piece, I mean, I'm so good at video editing. If we get it all done by, you know, a couple of days before, we can put it all together and just put it online at 4 o'clock on Christmas Eve. Who will know the difference?
That's right. Well, we've got recordings lined up starting today through next week. So
Okay.
we could figure something out if you want to do that. I mean,
Yeah.
because we got our recordings and, you know, that might be.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jan, I'm going to give you a call. I'm trying to figure out how you downloaded that book from Amazon.
Are you a Prime member?
Yes.
Okay. I'll try to
But-
figure it out again.
Yeah, because it's telling me, you know, if it's paperback, it's $10.99, or if it's on Kindle, it's $8. So,
Yeah, I got it on Kindle and it was $8. And
yeah.
I'm a member, of course.
I think I didn't go onto Amazon. I went to my Kindle site and searched and then
Okay.
asked for which ones were Prime books. And it
Okay.
came up, read now.
Maybe you have that deal that they have with Kindle where, you know, you have a whole library.
Oh,
to you.
I do.
Okay.
That's it.
All right.
But go to Prime Kindle and don't go through Amazon,
Okay.
and then try that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
They've already got my money.
Yeah, they got ours too.
Actually, I still owe you $8 for the book we haven't studied yet.
Which book is that?
Well, we kind of get the Lenten study we were going to do.
Oh, yeah,
And we, right when we were going to
Hey,
start.
I've got multiple copies of that here at the church.
Okay, well, I have it, and in there is an envelope with $8 for you.
Okay.
This spring, maybe.
That's ancient history now. I can't remember.
It comes, I think we will have Easter again.
I remember the Easter will come again. Yes, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
Sun will continue to rise.
Yes. Okay, I see people slowly
God.
appearing, so we're going
I don't know how to do it.
now.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.